I know what you're asking yourself. You're asking yourself, did he fire 5 shots or 6 shots? Well, the reality is, on all this commotion, I sort of lost track. So the real question you've got to ask is, do you feel lucky? Well, do you? The next thing we're going to talk about is TAT, 3D Advanced Targeting System. As you can see, this is basically a three-dimensional shoot target, and that's what we're going to break down next. First thing is you have wrist articulation. The forearm right here goes back and forth, so you can kind of put the target in a little bit more of a position than some of the other targetry that are out on the market. Same thing right here with the shoulder. These rotate up, so you can get them in a little bit more realistic fighting position. As you can see, this one happens to come with a handgun. They've got everything from rockets to grenades to knives to Uzis to radios to cell phones, and you get to configure this the way you want to. It's made out of polyurethane. So as an example, once you're done engaging the chest, you would just take this piece out right here, replace it, and then you're good. Depending upon, as long as you've kept your shots where you've needed to. One of the other features that I think is pretty neat is that they have the back side of the head is an actual plate. So if you were shooting a little bit further away, you'd immediately know whether or not you got a headshot based on, of course, the ding of the plate here. And if you rotate it around in this position, then of course you can engage the head. One thing that I would not do is engage the head and then of course have the piece of steel in the back, because the bullet's going to pass through and then it's going to start really fragging this head. So what I would do is I would have these dedicated as steel. They also make a replaceable chest plate where it will have a plate in it as well. And like I said, I would just utilize those as a dedicated mannequin, so to speak, to engage that just solely for steel. So you don't have to worry about, bolting and unbolting these plates right here. One thing that's nice is all the parts are individual. So if you need replacement fists, you can order that, forearms, arm, head. So if you're doing a lot of headshots, if you're a military unit doing more hostage rescue or a SWAT team or something of that nature, or just a civilian practicing in the event, that's all that is presenting itself, then nevertheless, all these parts are replaceable. We talked about the center portion of the chest right here. This is replaceable as well. This is going to obviously sustain the most amount of gunfire, so therefore you probably just want to pick up a few of these when you order it. How long they'll last? Well, I'm interested to see that myself. We know that a lot of these are somewhat self-healing, so I think as long as you're not running a 12 gauge with Fed tack on this thing up close and personal, or running slugs, I think this thing's going to last for a pretty substantial amount of time. Now, again, all the parts are individual, so you can buy the head, you can buy just the torso if you need to, and then going down to the target stand, we have wood on the side, and then there are a couple bolts over here off to the left-hand side that go through the torso, through the wood. So depending upon how good you're shooting or how bad your shooting is, you may have to replace these and pick up a few extras, and I'm sure that's something you can just get at a lumber yard. Your biggest thing is going to be just drilling holes and making sure that they're in alignment. I wish the stand was a little wider in nature. Yeah, I could throw something over it, but I noticed that if I can get a wider footprint, especially out here when the winds pick up, this would be less likely to blow over. It's a small minor thing, but nevertheless, I would widen that out just a little bit. As we talked about before, the steel option is a really cool option. And of course, replaceability on this particular product. I think once you start seeing how the realism from a paper target goes up to something like a three-dimensional person, and then of course the ability to start ringing some steel in combination with that three-dimensional person, I think you're going to see that you're going to be spending a lot of time shooting these. So for military, law enforcement, civilians that have their own ranges, or for civilians that are allowed to bring something like this to a regular range, may or may not be able to go down, I'm not really sure, but I think it is an awesome option. So a couple funny things. I set these things up I'm not really thinking much about it. And I'm going to take my Belgian Mal for a walk, and the first thing he does is pretty much run up and hit one of these things. So, and then of course he sniffed it because he didn't really understand it after that, but it was kind of comical. These things do look a little serious. It is kind of funny, you know, as people drive by in the yard. It looks like 3 gunmen sitting in my yard, but I think that these kind of targets will really help you balance out that marksmanship that we always concentrate on, that accuracy portion that we always concentrate on, and then your ability to read speed based on your sights and the feedback coming off of a shirt. And that's really, really important, meaning it's going to stop you from looking at your target as you're shooting it bullet hole wise. It'll start helping you, I believe, start reading your sights like you should be doing, whether you shoot paper or not. However, for those that have that hard transition, this will give you that ability, I believe, to just sit there, track your sight, track your sight, track your sight, track your sight, and not be so concerned about looking at what it's doing, because of course you're making really small holes in a shirt. So we should always be reading our sights. I believe this can help us, especially increase on that speed size, because it really, when you sit here in front of it, it really makes a huge difference. Like, I feel like I'm being attacked by somebody, not just a skeleton piece of paper, or even if it was a shoot no shoot type of targetry. Yeah, that's one thing, but again, this is more three-dimensional, and I think especially when we start looking at vehicle courses and other things of that nature, CQB, where we get into shoot no shoot, coming in and doing a room entry and engaging something like this, I think there's a huge benefit to it. And remember, these things will last forever if we were shooting something like UTM or sim at it. So it doesn't just have to be live fire. I would start throwing these things into any type of sim house or shoot house at that point for more realism.